Every few months, a new headline appears. Ukraine is winning. Russia is collapsing. The war will be over soon. But beneath the rhetoric, the reality on the ground is a physical, grueling gridlock. This chart shows the current map of the conflict. Russia currently occupies roughly 18% of Ukrainian territory. Despite years of fighting and multiple major offensives, those front lines have remained largely static. That lack of movement masks a staggering human toll. Western intelligence estimates suggest that both sides have suffered between 300,000 and 500,000 killed or wounded. The war has become a brutal mathematical exercise, where the front lines stay fixed while the bodies pile up. The deficit extends to the economy and the grid. Russia has systematically destroyed 90% of Ukraine's thermal and hydropower capacity. While Kiev survives on European imports, Moscow is utilizing a windfall of oil revenue to fund a permanent war footing. The arithmetic of the battlefield has turned the war for total liberation into a transaction dictated by industrial and human exhaustion. There are two total victories often discussed in public: the complete recapture of all Ukrainian territory or the total military subjugation of Ukraine by Russia. Neither is currently achievable. A full Ukrainian victory would require a collapse of the Russian state that hasn't begun to happen. A full Russian victory would require the West to completely abandon Kiev. This leaves the Korean model. Much like the peninsula in 1953, this ending sees the front lines harden into a de facto border. There is no peace treaty, only a frozen conflict that stops the killing but leaves the country divided. The other historical precedent is the German model. This involves a negotiated partition where permanent territorial loss is traded for hard Western security guarantees, anchoring the remaining portion of Ukraine within the European defense architecture. Both realistic endings require Ukraine to sacrifice sovereign territory in exchange for the survival of the state. For years, any talk of territorial compromise was a political taboo. That changed when the shift in Washington introduced an independent variable into the conflict. A new White House national security strategy recategorized Russia from a rogue state to a security stakeholder needed for strategic stability. This policy pivot created a two-track process. Track 1 involves direct U.S.-Russian negotiations, swapping territory for sanctions relief, while Track 2 manages the political fallout in Kyiv. Without unconditional American backing, Ukraine's ability to sustain a war of attrition evaporates. The math of the battlefield is now being overwritten by the math of American domestic politics. This policy shift has turned the negotiated settlement from a taboo concept into an unavoidable, coerced geopolitical transaction. Allowing a country to permanently keep territory taken by brute force effectively ends the post-World War II rule against territorial conquest. Every other power with territorial ambitions is watching. Beijing is learning that if you can outlast the outrage and absorb the sanctions, you eventually get to keep what you take. New Delhi has successfully navigated the conflict with tactical neutrality, securing billions in discounted Russian oil to fuel its own growth. But that short-term economic win ignores a long-term strategic trap. The precedent of forced annexation set by Russia in Ukraine is the exact precedent China could use on India's northern borders. The cost of this compromise is the birth of a world where sovereignty is secondary to a neighbor's military endurance, making every shared border on Earth less secure. The strategic objective for Kyiv has shifted. It is no longer about the ambition of total liberation, but the exhausting reality of mere national survival. This war will not end because of a grand moral realization. It will end because the cost of continuing has finally exceeded the cost of stopping. The geopolitical math will eventually resolve, and the lines on the map will harden. But for the people living within those lines, the human and physical destruction is permanent.